Hi everyone, welcome back to my Python videos. In this section we're looking at Pygame and how to make games. We've put images on the screen and we've moved it around a little. We're going to continue with that in this video, and we're also going to do some animation and begin building our game. So in the last video we left off with being able to put the dog on the screen, the image of the dog on the screen. And we were able to move it up and down, and left as an exercise to be able to add the code to move it left and right. So if you did add that code, you added these two lines here at the bottom, which basically check for a key right or a key left and move the X and Y positions, the X position. So that's it. It was very simple. And now when we run it, we can move our little dog in any direction. That gives you an idea of how to move X and Y coordinates around a screen. However, now that we've learned that, we want to use another method of moving images. So I've created files up here in my PyCharm for different settings. If you want to know how to create different files or get more familiar with PyCharm, you can refer to my lesson 1.2, Hello World. But I found it easier just to create a separate file. So in the new game, that I created, we're going to use something called a rectangle. So Pygame, to move images around the screen, uses a rectangle around the image, and this is for our benefit. This makes creating images on the fly easier, and it makes it makes a smoother move on the screen, and it makes the whole process of programming in games easier, and that's ultimately what Pygame sets out to do. There's a rectangle here defined, and this is for the image. So basically this is saying is that rec is the variable, and that we're assigning it to the image dog. And then we're also assigning another variable, screen rec, which is to the screen, which pulls from the my display, which we created earlier. So now we have two rectangles, one for the screen, one for the image of the dog, and we'll put the image of the dog on the rectangle for the screen. To do that, we make one little change to the blit command. If you remember that from previous video, the blit is a command that puts the image on the screen. So we changed that. We had the X and Y coordinates here in the tuple. Now we just simply have the name of the image, which in our case is dog, and a rectangle, which represents the rectangle of the dog. So once we make that change to the blit, we should be able to run this. I put the image on the bottom center, but either way, it still works the same way as it did before. We can move left and right, up and down. So just imagine a rectangular box around this image, and that's what we'll be moving, and center X is the center point of the rectangle. So to move the box around, the rectangular box, we just substitute rec.top, the bottom, center X, left and right, for left and right. So and that's how we move the image. So now we're going to try a little animation. Before we do that, I just want to talk about breaking down the program we have so that we can put it into modules and make it more readable. Now in our next version of the game, I took some of the settings code, the colors and the screen size, and put them in a separate module called game settings. So in game settings, I have the red and the black and the colors, and we'll add to this as the game evolves, and the screen and height. So the idea is that the settings now have been moved over to a separate file, so it takes it from the main program and makes it easier to read. So to import the settings, I simply import game settings as settings and just prepend settings to any of these variables, and it's pulling it from the other file. So if you look at the screen settings, for example, we just type settings screen width and settings screen height, and that pulls the settings from the game settings file. So on to animation. Animation, what we want to do is move our little picture of the dog around without having to press the left and right key. So what I've done to accomplish this is set up a routine in our while true loop to move the animation, the image around. So I started off first by centering the image at the bottom, center bottom of the screen. and setting a variable called direction equal to right. This is an arbitrary variable. I could have called it anything. But what this does is trigger the image to move to the right. So if the direction is equal to right, then rect center x is +5, add +5 points to it, and do that until it gets to the edge of the screen. Remember, my screen settings were 1200 wide. So once it gets to greater than 1100, we will stop, and then we'll go up and we'll change the direction variable to up, and then we'll follow the up function, or the up elif statement. And I continue to do this until the image circles around the screen and it's a continuous circle. So it's really very simple code, and I'll leave it on my website at pythonforadultsandkids.com, and you can download it yourself and look at it. But I don't want to go through it in detail here, but it's self-explanatory, and you can change it and modify it to your screen and work with it easily. If we run this, we'll see we'll have our first taste of animation. So as you can see, it's smooth. The dog is running around on its own. There's no input from us, and this is an example of how we can move images in Pygame. So let me give you a more of a real world example of this rather than a dog going around the screen. So I wanted to put something that could fly across the screen, but I wanted to be politically correct, and I'm tired of aliens. So I came up with a drone. So I had an image of a drone. I downloaded it, and this is what we have now. So we have a drone flying across the screen. So in the next video, we're going to figure out how to either control that or shoot it down or do something with that. Any suggestions, please put them in the comments. And that'll be our next project, to either attack the drone or move the drone. So you could probably take a look at it yourself at this point with what you know and figure out some steps. And like I said, I'm open to suggestions. I'll put this image of the drone and the other images in the code on my website at pythonforadultsandkids.com. Please feel free to go over there and get any of this and play with it. If you like these videos, please subscribe and share them with your friends. And until the next video, thanks again for watching. Appreciate it, and I'll see you soon.